Sunday dinners used to mean something in this house. My wife liked to say they were about family, about keeping tradition alive. She set the table like she was preparing for a magazine shoot. Candles lit, wine glasses shining, roast in the oven. On the surface, it looked perfect. But I'd known for weeks the perfection was rotting underneath. That night, I sat at the head of the table, thumb resting on the remote hidden under a folded napkin. Across from me, my wife smiled too brightly, chatting with her parents like nothing in the world was wrong. My sister and brother-in-law traded small talk, passing plates, pouring drinks. Everyone thought this was just another Sunday meal. They didn't know it was the last one. The clinking of silverware on plates faded when I leaned back in my chair. Calm, collected. I looked at my wife, then at her parents, then back at her. "Dinner's over," I said flatly. Confused glances darted around the table. My wife let out a nervous laugh. "What are you talking about? We haven't even." I pressed the button. The television across the room flickered to life. Not the usual sports highlights or news. No, this was different. Grainy at first, then sharp. My living room, my couch. My wife is with another man. Silence dropped like a hammer. Her parents froze, mouths open, forks suspended in midair. My sister's hand covered her mouth as the first sound hit. A laugh. My wife's laugh, too familiar, too intimate. She leaned into him on the screen, whispering words that sliced deeper than any image could. "Don't worry. He's too busy chasing his overtime checks. I'll get the bonus. Then I'm gone." The room shifted. Breathing changed. Her father's face went white. Her mother muttered something under her breath, staring at her daughter like she'd never seen her before. My wife shot up from her chair. "Turn it off. This isn't what it looks like." I didn't move. I didn't blink. The footage kept rolling. Her hands on him. His voice calling her by a name he'd clearly practiced in the dark. Her promises that once the paperwork cleared, she'd be set for life. Each second twisted the knife. She lunged toward me, but I raised my hand to stop the traffic. "Sit down," I said. My voice didn't need to rise, carried enough weight on its own. Her knees buckled as she fell back into her chair. I let the video play longer than I needed to. Every second was evidence, every word her undoing. Finally, I clicked the remote again. The screen went black. The only sound was the tick of the dining room clock and the shallow breaths of the people around me. I folded the remote, set it on the table like it was just another utensil. Then I spoke, slow and deliberate. "I built this house with my hands, paid for every bill, put food on this table. And while I was working to give her this life, she was busy selling it off for scraps. You all needed to see it. Now you have." Her father pushed his chair back, eyes hard, lips tight. He didn't say a word, just stood and walked toward the door. Her mother followed, shaking her head like she couldn't bear to stay another second. My sister's eyes met mine. She gave a single nod, silent recognition, and slipped her hand into her husband's before they left too. That left me and her. She broke the silence first, her voice cracking. "You don't understand." I cut her off. "I understand plenty, and I'm done listening." Her eyes filled with tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No pity, no regret, just a steady, simmering anger held tight on the leash. I stood, took my plate, and carried it into the kitchen. Behind me, she sat in the wreckage of her perfect dinner, surrounded by empty chairs, the taste of betrayal still hanging in the air. The trap was sprung. The game had changed, and for the first time in a long time I was in control. The house had never been this quiet. Not once in all the years we lived here. Usually, the place hummed with her voice, planning, nagging, filling silence with noise because she couldn't stand the sound of her own thoughts. But after that dinner, the walls swallowed everything. No laughter, no footsteps, just silence, heavy and final. I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and let the burn settle deep in my chest. The glass clinked against the counter as I set it down. Steady. She was slumped on the couch, hands shaking, tears running freely. For once, I didn't rush to calm her down. I didn't lean in, didn't offer comfort. I watched her crumble like a stranger. Between sobs, she tried to speak. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I made a mistake. Please just listen. I raised the glass again, cut her off without a word. She hated that more than yelling. She thrived on debates, on dragging me into her spin until I second-guessed myself. Not tonight. You don't get to talk, I said finally, my voice low and measured. You had your stage. Now you'll sit in the silence you made. Her face twisted, confusion and fear mixing together. She wasn't used to this version of me. The one who didn't argue, didn't chase, didn't try to patch broken glass with his bare hands. She sobbed louder, testing if volume could break me down. I poured another drink. The ice cracked like a gunshot in the glass. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking under my weight. I didn't need to tell her how badly she'd wrecked this marriage. The video had spoken louder than anything I could say. Tonight was about letting her hear herself in the silence, letting her sit with the echo of her own choices. Hours passed. She cried. She begged. She cursed. She promised. I stayed still, calm. The bourbon warmed me from the inside out, while her storm ran out of thunder. When the clock hit midnight, I stood, glass empty in my hand. She looked up at me like a drowning woman watching the lifeboat pull away. You're going to listen now, I told her. And tomorrow you're going to pack. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I didn't wait for a response. I walked upstairs, each step slow and deliberate. For the first time in months, maybe years, my chest felt light. No weight of suspicion. No gnawing questions. Just certainty. I slid into bed alone, the sheets cold but clean. My eyes shut easily, no tossing, no turning. No visions of her late nights out or excuses that never made sense. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I slept like a man who had finally stopped carrying someone else's lies. The sunlight cut through the blinds sharp as a blade, filling the kitchen with that sterile morning light that makes everything look too real. I sat at the table with black coffee in hand, the newspaper folded but unread. I wasn't thinking about headlines or ball scores. I was waiting. She came down the stairs slowly, like a child walking into a principal's office. Her face was swollen from crying, her hair tangled. She looked smaller than she had the night before, stripped of the arrogance she used to wear like perfume. She hovered near the counter, clutching the edge like it was the only thing holding her up. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally, voice trembling. I took a long sip of coffee, let the silence work before I answered. Then I set the mug down and looked her square in the eye. "I want you gone." The words hit her harder than the video had. She blinked fast, like she hadn't heard right. "Gone? You don't mean that." I cut her off with a firm shake of my head. "Pack your things. You're not staying here tonight." She moved closer, desperation bleeding through. "We can fix this. I can fix this. Please just talk to me. Please." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. There's no fixing betrayal. There's no fixing the lies. This house is mine. My name's on every piece of paper that matters. You lost the right to call it home the second you opened the door to another man. Her knees gave a little. She grabbed the chair opposite me, eyes wide, searching for some crack in my armor. "You don't mean it. You're just angry. Say you're angry, and we'll work it out." Finally, I leaned forward, palms flat on the table, my voice low but absolute. "Angry? You're damn right I'm angry. But this isn't rage. This is me done. You don't get to cry your way out of it. You don't get to spin your stories anymore. You're leaving today. End of discussion." Her face crumpled. She dropped to her knees beside me, grabbing at my arm, trying to pull me back into the same old dance. But I didn't move. I stood, peeled her hands off like they were nothing, and stepped away. "You can beg all you want. I'm not listening. By sundown, you'll be out of this house. If you need me to call a cab, I'll call one. But you are not sleeping under this roof tonight." She sat there on the floor, wrecked, staring up at me as if she'd never seen me before. And maybe she hadn't. She'd seen the man who worked overtime, the man who bit his tongue, the man who swallowed his suspicions for the sake of keeping the peace. She'd never met the man who was done. I poured another cup of coffee, my back to her. The decision was made, solid as concrete. I didn't need to argue or justify. Behind me, her sobs started again, soft and broken. I didn't turn around. By the time I walked out the door for work, the only words left hanging in the air were mine. "You're not staying here tonight." By the time I got back from work the next evening, the house was quiet. Her suitcase was gone. Good. One less step for me to handle. She thought tears and pleading would stall me. She had no idea I was already 10 moves ahead. I poured myself a whiskey and picked up the phone. Not to call her. Not to call family. To call the man who had once told me, "If she ever pulls something like this, I've got the guy for you." That guy was a divorce attorney who didn't play games. He didn't compromise. He dealt in wins. The next morning, I was in his office. Leather chairs, thick blinds, the smell of expensive cigars clinging to the walls. He shook my hand firmly, the kind of grip that told me he'd buried more than a few marriages for men like me. I laid it all out. Every hidden camera clip, every timestamp, every text. Weeks of her cheating cataloged like evidence in a trial. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The footage spoke for itself. He leaned back, eyebrows raised. "You've got her dead to rights. This isn't just grounds for divorce. This is leverage." "Leverage is exactly what I want," I said. "She's not getting a dime she doesn't deserve. No alimony. No split. Nothing. She walks away with what she brought in, and that's it." He smirked, sliding a legal pad across the desk. "We'll draft the papers today. Clean, airtight. If she fights, we bury her in discovery and subpoenas. If she's smart, she'll sign before it ever gets near a judge." That's when I leaned forward, my voice low, deliberate. "Make sure she knows if she drags this out, the footage goes public. Her parents see the rest. Her lover gets subpoenaed. Every lie she tells gets played out in a courtroom. I don't care if it burns her life down to ashes. She signs or I burn it down." The lawyer's grin widened. "I like the way you think." By noon, the first set of papers was ready. Clean break on my terms. My lawyer promised delivery would be swift. She'd be holding them in her hands before the weekend. Driving home, I felt the weight shift. For the first time since I pressed play at that dinner table, I wasn't just reacting. I was leading. Every move from here was mine to make. That night, I sat in my chair, drink in hand, watching the fire crackle in the fireplace. She thought betrayal would weaken me, make me desperate. Instead, it sharpened me. It made me colder, made me stronger. The game wasn't about love anymore. It was about control, and I just seized it back, piece by piece. The law firm smelled like power. Polished wood, cold coffee, the faint tang of paper. She arrived with her lawyer, makeup applied like armor, a dress picked to say she'd survived the fall. Her hands trembled only once, when she set her purse down. That was all she had left that wasn't already accounted for in the footage. They sat opposite me at the negotiation table. Her lawyer tried the usual softening lines. "We can keep this amicable. Let's be reasonable." As if reasonable could repair what she'd already shredded. I let them talk. I watched her lips move while my face stayed stone. Let them think they had room to maneuver. When they finished, I spoke. No theatrics. No raised voice. "Sign here," I said, sliding the first page across the table. The paper looked ordinary, but the terms were anything but. No alimony, no claim on the house, her name off every account I controlled. Clean, final, irreversible. Her lawyer cleared his throat, searching for loopholes. "We can negotiate." "No," I interrupted, flat and absolute. "This was never a negotiation." Eyes flicked to me. Her breath hitched. She mouthed something I didn't catch. I let the silence do the work. Pressed on them like winter. Her attorney tried one last tactic, appeal to pity, to precedent. He pointed out minor contributions she'd made, little threads to tug at the fabric of my case. I listened, then folded my hands. "The evidence is clear," I said. "The terms are fair. You can sign quietly, or you can make this public and watch every lie you told be turned into testimony." The room shifted. She blinked at me like a person waking up mid-dream, realizing they'd bet wrong. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering, mouthing words meant to reassure. He knew what my lawyer had told him the week before. I wasn't bluffing. I'd already spent hours with discovery, subpoenas ready, witnesses prepped. I'd built a path that would make contesting her claims a liability she couldn't afford. She picked up the pen with hands that didn't look like they belonged to the woman who once handled my bills and my calendar. She hesitated, long enough for the room to hold its breath, then scribbled her name. The ink looked small on the page, a weak signature on the edge of ruin. Her lawyer signed next, lips pressed tight. We all sat for a beat, the silence a seal. I folded the papers slowly and slid them into an envelope, sealing it like a verdict. "You can leave now," I said. "This ends today." She didn't fight me. She stood, shoulders rounded, and left. Her parents waited outside in their car, faces drained of whatever certainty they'd come in with. They avoided my gaze. Her father's jaw worked like he was trying to swallow pride that had dissolved into ash. Her mother cried quietly into her handkerchief. When they drove away, the receptionist at the desk looked up and offered a sympathetic glance. I took a deep breath and felt something unclench inside my chest. Less fury than relief, less triumph than a sick, necessary satisfaction. I'd taken the war out of the courthouse and put it on their kitchen table. I'd shown the people who mattered who she really was. The rest was paperwork. The rest was final. Outside, the sky was a clean, hard blue. I walked to my car slow, steady, like a man who had finished the work he'd come to do. No one followed me. No one tried to stop me. That was as it should be. I'd reclaimed the seat at the head of the table. Quietly, efficiently, and without apology. 2 nights later, I walked into a downtown steakhouse for a coworker's birthday. The place was crowded, dim lights glinting off polished glasses, the air thick with the scent of charred meat and bourbon. I was halfway to the table when I saw them, her, sitting with her parents like nothing had happened. Her mother stiffened when she noticed me. Her father avoided my eyes, staring at the menu like it held the secrets of the universe. She straightened in her seat, lips parting as if she wanted to say something, maybe even to act like this was just an awkward coincidence. I didn't give her the chance. I pulled my phone out, scrolled to a 30-second clip, and hit play. The sound carried just enough to reach their table. Her voice, breathy and cruel, telling her lover about getting the bonus before walking away. Her face drained white. Her father slammed his napkin on the table and pushed back his chair, muttering something sharp I couldn't catch. He walked out without looking back. Her mother followed close, tears welling. That left her. She looked up at me across the restaurant, eyes wide, mouth trembling. "You win," she whispered, barely audible over the clink of glasses and the low hum of conversation. I leaned closer, pocketing the phone, my voice low and final. "No, I will end it." She froze. The words sank in heavier than the video itself. I wasn't just reminding her of what she'd done. I was showing her that I controlled how this story closed, when and where the curtain dropped. I didn't wait for her reply. I turned and walked to my table, joining my coworkers like nothing had happened. The weight of their stares followed me, but I felt lighter. Behind me, she sat alone, her perfect mask shattered in public once again. And that was the point. Sometimes the final blow doesn't need shouting. Sometimes it's delivered quietly, surgically, and undeniably. And sometimes the only thing left to say is, "It ends when I decide it ends." The courthouse smelled like dust and old wood polish, the kind of place where lives get split in half with the stroke of a pen. I wore the same charcoal suit I'd worn on our wedding day. Not for sentiment, for symbolism. I wanted her to see it, to remember what we'd stood for when we made vows neither of us was supposed to break. She chose her path. I was just here to bury it in style. She sat 3 rows ahead, next to her attorney. Her shoulders were slumped, her hair pulled back like she'd stopped trying. She didn't look at me, not once. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she knew if she did, She'd see exactly what she'd thrown away staring right back at her. The judge called us forward. My attorney handed over the paperwork. Clean, final, already signed by her. She didn't contest a single line. No alimony. No property split. The house stayed mine. The accounts stayed mine. Everything stayed exactly where it belonged. The proceeding lasted less than 20 minutes. Years of marriage boiled down to signatures and a gavel strike. Efficient. Brutal. Exactly how I wanted it. As we walked out of the courtroom, she finally turned. Her eyes were red, rimmed with sleeplessness, but her voice was soft, almost tender. "Can we talk?" I stopped just long enough to answer. "Talk about what?" She swallowed, searching for words, like a gambler reaching for chips long after the table's cleared. "I loved you," she said. I let the silence stretch, then leaned in close enough that only she could hear me. Then stay lost. Her face cracked, the last of her defenses collapsing. She didn't follow me. She didn't try again. She just stood there, hollow, as I walked out into the open air. The sky was sharp blue, the kind that cuts your eyes if you stare too long. I loosened my tie, slipped my hands into my pockets, and walked toward the truck. The marriage was over. Not with fireworks, not with a fight. With a clean, merciless end. And that was exactly how it needed to be. The house was quiet when I came back from court. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty but clean. Final. The echoes of her crying, the weight of her lies. They were gone, replaced by something sharper. Ownership. I went straight to the office, powered up the computer, and opened the folder I'd built piece by piece. Hours of footage, timestamps, copies of messages. Every detail I had collected to dismantle her story. My weapon, my shield. It had served its purpose. Now it was poison sitting on my hard drive. One by one, I clicked through the files. Her voice was laughing with him. Her promises whispered in the dark. Her face, smug and careless, caught by the cameras I'd hidden. Each clip burned, but each one reminded me why I'd done what I did. Proof. Justice. Closure. I hovered over the delete key. My hand didn't shake. This wasn't hesitation, it was ritual. A man doesn't just win. He cleans the field when the battle's done. Click. Delete. The progress bar slid across the screen, swallowing her image, her words, her betrayal. I emptied the recycle bin, watching it vanish for good. No backups. No secret copies. Just silence where the evidence had lived. Then I moved through the house. The living room where I'd played the footage. The kitchen where I told her to leave. The bedroom where I'd once shared sleep felt safe. I stripped it all of her. Her perfume bottles went in a trash bag. Her framed photos came down, glass cracking as they hit the bottom. By the time I finished, the house wasn't ours anymore. It was mine. I poured myself a drink and sat in my chair, listening to the creak of the wood, the hum of the fridge, the quiet that was no longer haunted. The house wasn't a crime scene. It wasn't a monument to betrayal. It was home again, under my name, under my rules. For the first time in a long time, I felt the ground under me was steady. She couldn't touch it. She couldn't poison it. The past was ash and I'd swept it clean. Last night I poured myself a drink. I didn't do anything to numb anything. I did it to mark the end. The bourbon swirled in the glass, catching the light from the lamp like amber fire. I sat at the head of my table, the same spot where I'd once pressed play and let her world collapse, and raised the glass to no one but myself. People would call what I did revenge. They'd be wrong. Revenge is wild, messy, driven by chaos. What I did was clean, controlled, a reckoning. I didn't chase her down or scream in her face. I didn't beg her to stay or fight for scraps of her affection. I simply exposed the truth and walked away with my dignity intact. I thought about the looks on their faces that night, the shock, the shame, the silence that swallowed the room. That was my closure. Not her tears, not her excuses. The truth, out in the open, echoing louder than anything I could have shouted. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the quiet. The house felt lighter, stripped of lies. My chest felt stronger, uncluttered. Tomorrow I'd start fresh. New paint on the walls. New locks on the doors. Maybe even a new truck, because why not? She had no claim on any of it. I finished the drink, set the empty glass down, and let a smile tug at the corner of my mouth. A real smile, not forced, not bitter. Sometimes closure doesn't come in whispers. Sometimes it has to roar. And mine had roared through dinner tables, law offices, and courtrooms until there was nothing left but silence. And me, standing tall in it. I raised the glass one last time, a quiet toast to the man I refused to let break, to new beginnings.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.